The lobby smelled like lavender, coffee beans, and the faint sting of lemon polish, the kind of blend designed to whisper luxury into the nostrils of anyone who dared cross the threshold. A chandelier sparkled overhead, reflecting soft light onto polished marble floors that looked so clean you'd swear Cinderella's mice had been scrubbing them at overtime pay. The front desk stretched sleek and glossy across the room, manned by a pair of employees who were clearly more invested in admiring their own reflections in the chrome than in greeting incoming guests. And into this curated temple of refinement strode a woman who looked like she belonged on the cover of Forbes, or at the very least, the winner's circle of America's next top entrepreneur. She wore a tailored blazer that meant business and heels sharp enough to slice through bad contracts. Her hair was flawless, her confidence undeniable, and her smile, though subdued, carried the assurance of someone who had climbed every rung of the ladder with her own two hands. This was her place, not just in the sense of "I fit in here." No, this was literally her hotel. Every marble tile, every chandelier bulb, every overpriced latte in the cafe was hers. But you wouldn't know it from the way the staff looked at her. The receptionist, a young woman with a smirk that could peel paint, raised her brows in the universal signal for, "Oh, you must be lost." The manager leaned against the counter, adjusting his tie as if his position came with free arrogance refills. Their eyes swept over the protagonist like she was gum stuck to the bottom of their designer shoes. Something unwanted, something unworthy. "Good afternoon," the woman said, her voice calm but crisp, carrying the authority of someone who has signed paychecks with more zeros than the staff had ever seen. "I'd like to check in. Reservation should be under my name." Her name. Her empire. The receptionist's fingers clattered across the keyboard with the enthusiasm of someone reluctantly paying back student loans. She clicked, scrolled, and then gave a laugh that wasn't really a laugh, more of a scoff wrapped in perfume. "I don't see your name here. Are you sure you have the right hotel? We're a luxury establishment." The manager leaned in, his smile dripping with smugness. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the budget chains down the road." The woman blinked, not because she was shocked at their behavior. Sadly, she'd met enough people like this in her life, but because she couldn't quite believe the audacity of being dismissed in her own building. If audacity were an Olympic sport, these employees would have been draped in gold medals, humming the national anthem of arrogance in the back of her mind. A flicker of memory replayed. Not long ago, she was the one on the other side of counters like these, hustling for every dollar, juggling side jobs before side hustle was even a buzzword. She could still taste the greasy smoke of late-night diner shifts, smell the synthetic floral spray of department stores where she folded shirts until her hands ached. She remembered carrying her Walkman everywhere, blasting Destiny's Child as if the harmonies could patch the holes in her tired soul. She remembered saving quarters in a jar, slowly, painfully, until they became enough to invest in herself. The climb wasn't easy. But brick by brick, deal by deal, sacrifice by sacrifice, she had built an empire. And now, here she was, standing in the lobby of her very own boutique hotel, being told she didn't belong. Her lips curved into something between disbelief and amusement. "You don't see my name?" she asked softly. The receptionist leaned back, twirling a pen in her manicured fingers. "No, ma'am. Perhaps you're mistaken. This is a high-standard property. We have to be careful about who we let stay here." The pause before "who" carried the weight of centuries, a dagger coated in sugar. The woman's gaze didn't waver. "Is that so?" By now, a couple of guests lounging in the lobby had started to watch. The kind of people who thrived on drama the way plants thrived on sunlight. The air buzzed, the way it does in Walmart parking lots at 2 a.m. when a shouting match breaks out, and suddenly everyone's invested. The manager gave a stiff chuckle, the kind of chuckle men give when they're used to being the smartest voice in the room. "Ma'am, I don't think you understand. We have a certain clientele. Our rooms aren't for just anyone." And there it was. The dismissal, the insinuation, wrapped in politeness, served with a smile, but bitter enough to curdle milk. She felt it. The heat, the sting, the rage clawing at her chest. For a split second, she considered snapping, unleashing the fury of a woman who had clawed her way to success only to be sneered at in her own house. But then she breathed, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Calm, controlled. Because explosions are loud, but strategy, Strategy leaves echoes. She tapped her nails against the counter. Slow, rhythmic. Each click was a countdown. Interesting, she said at last. Her tone was light, airy, like she was commenting on the weather. Because I was under the impression this establishment welcomed guests from all walks of life. The receptionist rolled her eyes. The manager smirked. Well, you were misinformed. The woman gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. Not the kind of smile you give when you're happy. The kind of smile you give when the game has changed, when you realize the people across from you are already losing and they don't even know it. The irony wasn't lost on her. These employees, dripping with smug superiority, had no idea that the woman they were belittling signed their checks, that the chandelier twinkling above their heads, she paid for it. The marble under their shoes, she selected it. The lavender scent wafting through the vents, her choice, her money, her hotel. And here they were, denying her a room. To the audience of onlookers, it probably seemed like a small humiliation. A woman denied service, brushed aside like lint on a suit jacket. But in reality, it was a spark. And sparks have a way of igniting fires. She straightened her blazer. Her heels clicked against the marble as she stepped back from the desk, surveying the lobby like a general assessing a battlefield. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She didn't stomp her feet and demand recognition. Instead, she let the silence stretch, let the weight of her composure press down on the room. And then, just before she turned, she whispered, soft enough for only the audience in her head to hear, but sharp enough to cut through the moment like glass. They don't know who they're dealing with. The smile returned, subtle and dangerous. Not the smile of someone who had lost, but of someone who had just decided the rules of the game had changed. 9 minutes. That's all it would take. 9 minutes until this entire lobby looked very different. And with that, she walked away from the counter, leaving the receptionist twirling her pen, the manager adjusting his tie, and the audience, both in the lobby and at home, leaning forward, waiting, needing to know what came next. The manager's laugh rolled across the lobby like a cheap ringtone in the middle of a funeral, loud, inappropriate, and impossible to ignore. He straightened his suit jacket as if his authority were stitched into the lapels, and looked at the woman with the patronizing patience of someone explaining algebra to a toddler. His cologne, too strong and too confident, wafted across the counter, a cloud of artificial sandalwood that nearly choked out the lavender piped in through the vents. His nameplate gleamed, Gregory T. Sinclair, General Manager. And Gregory T. Sinclair was convinced he was the gatekeeper of luxury. Ma'am, he said with the slow, measured tone of a man who enjoyed dragging out syllables just to flex his superiority. This establishment is known for maintaining certain standards. I wouldn't want you to be uncomfortable. His smile stretched, shark-like, the kind of smile that hid teeth meant to tear. She tilted her head, meeting his gaze with cool composure. Standards, she repeated, letting the word roll off her tongue like a challenge. The receptionist chimed in, eager to echo her boss's authority. We have to be selective. Our clientele expect a certain level of. She glanced over the woman's blazer and handbag, dismissing them with one swift flick of her eyes. Elegance. It was subtle, almost polite. But to anyone listening, the subtext was as loud as a boombox blasting Usher in the middle of a library. Not elegant enough. Not the right image. Not the kind of guest they wanted to be associated with their hotel. The woman could feel the eyes of the lobby on her. A couple sipping overpriced lattes leaned forward, whispering to each other as though they had stumbled onto a live soap opera. A teenager lounging in one of the lobby chairs pulled out his phone, discreetly recording. Because drama in 4K was better than Netflix. Gregory clasped his hands, nodding toward the door. Now, if you'd like, I can give you directions to a property that might be more suited to your needs. There's a chain hotel 3 blocks down. Very welcoming. Very affordable. The word stung, though she didn't flinch. Affordable. Suited to your needs. Each phrase was coated in false kindness, dipped in condescension. She took a slow breath. I'm exactly where I need to be, she said, her voice even, measured. Gregory chuckled again. The sound so grating it deserved its own spot on a top 10 most annoying noises of the 2000s list, right between dial-up internet and a skipping CD player. I assure you, you're mistaken. He tapped the counter with a manicured finger. No reservation under your name. No room. No exceptions. The receptionist smirked, whispering something under her breath that made Gregory grin wider. The woman felt the anger building, hot and heavy, a storm gathering under her skin. But instead of exploding, she stood taller, the kind of posture that said she wasn't just part of the room, she owned it. Literally, for a flicker of a moment, she imagined pulling out her checkbook, slamming it on the counter, and scribbling owner across the top in bold letters. Or maybe tossing down her corporate credit card with her name embossed across it, just to watch their faces collapse into horror. But no, that was too easy, too quick. Justice, she thought, should simmer. Justice should marinate. Still, her patience was tested. "I'd like to speak to whoever's in charge," she said, finally ducked Gregory's laugh again. "You're already speaking to him. I run this hotel." The irony of that line almost made her laugh out loud. Run this hotel? She nearly choked on the sheer audacity. She signed the ownership papers with the kind of pen that cost more than his monthly dry cleaning bill. And here he was, pretending the building revolved around him like a sun with bad cologne. The tension rippled outward. Guests watched more openly now. The teen recording had tilted his phone for a better angle, his thumb twitching in excitement at the potential of catching something viral. The receptionist leaned back in her chair, arms folded smugly, as though this showdown were a foregone conclusion. Gregory adjusted his tie again, clearly savoring the moment. "You see, we take pride in protecting the image of this place. Not just anyone can walk in and claim they belong. Our reputation matters." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Reputation," she echoed, her tone flat, but her eyes alive with something sharper. The word hung between them like a ticking clock. Inside her chest, the storm reached its peak. She thought about every late night she'd spent clawing her way upward, about the insults and dismissals she'd endured long before she could afford to buy her first piece of property. She thought about the sacrifices, the missed birthdays, the broken relationships, the times she'd been told, "People like you don't make it this far." And here it was again, served to her on a marble counter by a man who thought his tie and nameplate gave him dominion. But she wasn't the woman she used to be. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice, as though sharing a secret. "Are you sure you want to stand by that?" Gregory blinked. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face, like a dial-up connection struggling to load. But he recovered quickly, puffing out his chest. "Absolutely." The receptionist let out a quiet laugh, shaking her head. "Some people really don't know their place." The words landed like a slap. And yet, the woman didn't raise her voice. She didn't slam her hand on the counter or demand recognition. Instead, she straightened, cool and unshaken, and reached into her bag. A phone. Sleek, black, modern. She tapped the screen, the glow illuminating her face. The lobby's hush deepened, the kind of collective silence that comes before lightning cracks across a summer sky. If Gregory noticed the shift, he ignored it. "Now, unless you'd like me to call security," she held up a finger. Just one. A simple gesture that shut him down mid-sentence. Her phone's camera winked open. The teen recording gasped softly, realizing what was happening. She spoke clearly, every word ringing through the lobby with deliberate precision. "It's fascinating, really, to walk into a hotel I own and be told I don't belong." Gregory froze. The receptionist blinked. The phone stayed steady, her hand unwavering. "This is Gregory T. Sinclair, the so-called general manager of my property, informing me that I am not fit to stay here, that I don't meet his standards." The audience widened. More phones appeared, guests pretending to scroll but angling their cameras just so. A ripple of recognition spread through the lobby, the kind of collective understanding that this moment was no longer confined to marble walls. It was destined for bigger screens. Gregory forced a laugh, nervous this time. "Now, wait just a..." She tilted her head, cutting him off with nothing but a look. Calm, controlled, dangerous, eye in her chest. The storm quieted, no longer a fury but a sharpened blade. She knew what came next. This wasn't going to be a simple confrontation. This was going to be a spectacle, a lesson, a reckoning. She pressed stop on the recording and slipped her phone back into her bag, her movements slow and deliberate. Gregory exhaled, thinking, hoping, that maybe the threat had ended, but the smile that curved across her lips told a different story, because now the clock was ticking. 9 minutes. That's all it would take. 9 minutes until the balance shifted, until Gregory and his smug receptionist learned the cost of their arrogance. She turned, her heels clicking across the marble, each step echoing like the toll of a bell. Behind her, Gregory muttered something to the receptionist, his voice low, but it didn't matter. Their words no longer held power. The elevator doors slid shut behind her with a metallic sigh, the kind that always seemed to mark the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. She leaned back against the mirrored wall, her reflection staring back at her with calm eyes and the faintest hint of a smile that was anything but gentle. She had learned long ago that fury was best served chilled, with garnish, and maybe posted online for maximum effect. The staff downstairs thought they had humiliated her. What they didn't know was that humiliation was her favorite seasoning for revenge. She tapped her phone awake. A single video clip waited, gleaming in her gallery like a loaded bullet in a revolver. Just 9 seconds of Gregory Sinclair's arrogance captured in crisp HD. Him dismissing her, mocking her, rejecting her existence in the very building that bore her signature on its ownership papers. She replayed it once, savoring it like a trailer before the feature film. This wasn't just evidence. This was ammunition. The elevator chimed as it reached her floor, but she wasn't headed to a guest room. She had another destination in mind. Her office. The nerve center she had built on the top floor, where the windows overlooked the city and the desk was large enough to stage battles. As she walked down the carpeted hallway, her phone buzzed. Her assistant's name flashed on the screen. "They tried to deny you, didn't they?" The assistant's voice was sharp, already bracing for chaos. "They didn't just try," she replied smoothly. "They succeeded. At least for 9 minutes. Do you want me to?" "Yes," she cut in. "Send the files. Staff contracts, termination letters. Everything. And get legal on standby." The assistant whistled softly. "You're not wasting time." She smiled, sliding her office door open. Why waste time when people are busy wasting mine? The office smelled faintly of leather and coffee. She set her bag down, took her seat, and pulled up her laptop. The glow of the screen lit her face like stage lights on an actress who knew her lines better than anyone else in the play. The plan wasn't forming. It was already formed. Years of clawing her way through hostile rooms had trained her to think 5 moves ahead, like a grandmaster setting traps in a chess game that her opponent thought was checkers. Still, she didn't want this to be quiet. Quiet victories were for the meek. She wanted spectacle. She wanted the kind of poetic justice that would travel from lobby whispers to viral posts faster than a Rickroll link in 2008. As she opened her social media app, her fingers flying across the screen, a caption formed. "When the staff at your own hotel tells you you're not good enough to stay there. Hashtag wait for it, hashtag plot twist." She uploaded the clip, hit post, and sat back, the hum of satisfaction buzzing in her chest. Her phone dinged immediately. 1 like, then 3, then 10. The algorithm was feasting, but she wasn't done. A viral post would shame them, yes, but she wanted a clean dismantling too. Paperwork was power. She pulled up the digital contracts, scanning Gregory's name. His arrogance was practically signed into his employment file, paragraph after paragraph about his vision for guest experience, all while ignoring the one guest he should never have dared to dismiss. She began drafting the termination notices. Precise language. No emotion, no hesitation. Just cold, efficient dismissal. She typed Gregory's name first, then the receptionist's, then the bellboy who had snickered under his breath as though her humiliation were a live comedy special. Each letter ended with the same line. Effective immediately. Her phone buzzed again. Notifications pouring in now. Comments stacking like dominoes. Wait, did she just say her hotel? Oh, they're done. I need part 2 of this saga ASAP. She chuckled. Even strangers smelled the storm. The next step was theater. Quiet firings wouldn't satisfy the sting they tried to inflict. No, this had to happen in public, in the same lobby where they had paraded their false superiority. If arrogance was their stage, then downfall would be the encore. She texted her assistant again. "Bring the paperwork down in 10. Meet me in the lobby. And bring security." Her heels clicked as she left the office, each step steady, deliberate. The march of a woman who knew she was about to write her favorite kind of story, one where karma arrived dressed in designer shoes. The elevator carried her down, the notifications still buzzing in her pocket. By the time the doors opened to the lobby, her post had crossed the threshold into virality. She could feel it. The hum in the air wasn't just luxury. It was anticipation. Gregory was still there, adjusting his tie, chatting with a couple at the counter, his arrogance unshaken, oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath him had already cracked. The receptionist perched nearby, scrolling her phone with the smirk of someone still savoring her supposed victory. The woman didn't approach right away. She let the lobby breathe, let the guests glance up from their coffees and conversations to sense something about to unfold. She stood at the edge, calm, composed, the kind of presence that drew eyes without demanding them. Her assistant arrived, a folder tucked under her arm, flanked by two members of the hotel's security team. The staff glanced over, puzzled but not alarmed. Gregory squinted, suspicion flickering like static on a weak signal. "Is there a problem?" he asked. His tone dipped in arrogance, but laced with the faintest tremor. She stepped forward, meeting his eyes. "Yes, a very big one." The folder snapped open. Paperwork gleamed. She held up the first letter. "Gregory T. Sinclair, as of this moment, you are relieved of your duties. Effective immediately." The silence cracked into gasps. The couple at the counter froze. The teen with the phone nearly dropped it in excitement. Gregory's face drained of color, his jaw flapping soundlessly like a fish pulled from water. "Excuse me," he stammered. "You're excused," she replied smoothly, handing the letter to security. They stepped forward, one on either side of him. "From this building. Permanently." The receptionist shot up from her chair, wide-eyed. "What is going on?" The woman turned, sliding the second letter free. "As for you." She extended it toward the receptionist, her nails tapping the paper once. "Consider this your official notice. The arrogance you displayed today is incompatible with the standards of this hotel. You're finished here." The smirk that had danced across the receptionist's face earlier crumbled into disbelief. "You can't do this." "Oh," she said, her voice honeyed with sarcasm, "but I can. Because unlike you, I don't just work here. I own this place." The words rang through the lobby like church bells. Guests murmured, some clapping softly, others reaching for their phones to capture the moment. Gregory tried to rally, sputtering, "You can't treat me like this. I run this hotel." She turned, her smile sharp as glass. "Correction, you ran this hotel." Past tense. The scene unfolded with a rhythm almost musical. Each denial, each scoff they had thrown at her earlier now boomeranged back, striking with greater force. One by one, the letters left her hand and found their targets. One by one, the staff who had mocked her were stripped of their power in front of the very audience they had tried to impress. The lobby buzzed louder now, alive with whispers and gasps. Guests leaned forward, eyes wide, as though they were watching the season finale of a show they didn't even know they'd subscribed to. And in a way, they were. Gregory's final act of resistance came in the form of a desperate plea. "This is a mistake. You'll regret this." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "The only mistake was yours. You underestimated me." And with that, security escorted him toward the door, his protests echoing hollowly through the marble chamber. The receptionist followed, still sputtering excuses, her heels clicking in a panicked rhythm that matched her unraveling composure. The woman stood still in the center of the lobby, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. She could feel the weight of their eyes, the recording phones, the satisfaction bubbling in the air. The phones in the lobby never stopped ringing, but for once, Sandra let them ring. She stood at the center of the marble floor like she owned the place, because she did. The neon, the grand pavilion sign outside glowed as if it knew tonight was different. The staff, who had laughed at her just hours ago, were now frozen in silence, their smirks wiped clean. Sandra wasn't the kind of woman who raised her voice unnecessarily, but tonight she didn't need to. Every click of her heels on the polished floor was louder than thunder in their guilty ears. "Do you know what's worse than being denied a room in your own hotel?" she asked, her voice sharp as glass. No one answered. "It's realizing the very people you trusted to run this place think they can treat me like a stranger in my house." The night manager, Doug, the ringleader of the humiliation, swallowed hard. He wasn't the smug bulldog from earlier. He looked like a middle-aged frat boy who'd just been told the keg was empty. His tie was crooked, his forehead sweaty, and his excuses piled up behind his clenched teeth. "Sandra, listen, it was a misunderstanding. We didn't know. She cut him off like a judge slamming down the gavel. Didn't know I signed your paychecks? Didn't know the woman whose portrait is hanging in the hallway with a gold frame? Her eyes narrowed. Or didn't care because I wasn't what you expected? The silence was unbearable. Even the ticking clock at the concierge desk sounded nervous. Sandra took out her phone and waved it like Excalibur. Here's the thing. I don't need to argue with you. I don't need to plead. I already recorded the whole exchange. Every word, every sneer, every insult about me not looking like I belong. Doug paled. The younger receptionist gasped audibly. The bellboy looked like he wanted to crawl into the luggage cart and roll out of town. Sandra smirked, the kind of smirk that could headline a stadium tour. And guess where that clip's going? Straight to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Hell, I might even put it on MySpace for the nostalgia. She tapped the screen dramatically. This little 9-minute soap opera you all staged? It's about to have a global audience. The words hit like a wrecking ball. The receptionist's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for water. Doug stepped forward, stammering. Sandra, let's not overreact. Overreact. Sandra barked out a laugh. Oh, honey, this isn't overreacting. This is the reaction. She strode behind the counter, grabbed the intercom, and pressed the button that connected to every speaker in the hotel. Her voice boomed with the clarity of destiny itself. Attention, everyone. Effective immediately, the current front desk staff is dismissed. That's right, terminated. Consider this your last free night at the Grand Pavilion. A gasp echoed through the lobby as if the chandeliers themselves were shocked. The tourists sipping overpriced cocktails in the lounge turned to watch the live drama. A woman in a glittering gown whispered, "Is this a reality show?" while pulling out her phone to record. Doug's jaw dropped. "You can't fire us all." Sandra leaned in, her voice low and lethal. "Doug, sweetie, I own this hotel. I can fire you, your shoes, and the gum in your mouth if I want to." The staff stood stunned, paralyzed by the speed at which karma had struck. Sandra, however, wasn't done. She tapped her phone again, this time opening her email. Already contacted corporate. Security will escort you out within 10 minutes. Your severance package? A one-way ticket to humility. The bellboy muttered, "Damn," under his breath, and even the chandelier seemed to twinkle in agreement as the staff fumbled to gather their things. Sandra addressed the guests. "To everyone who witnessed tonight's circus, I apologize. You came for 5-star service, not a soap opera." She gestured grandly toward the bar. "Drinks on the house. Charge it to—" "Oh wait, never mind. Charge it to the idiots who just got fired." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Sandra wasn't just reclaiming her dignity. She was turning humiliation into entertainment. Phones were out, flashes went off, and the moment went viral in real time. Within minutes, #HotelQueenSandra was trending, memes popping up faster than microwave popcorn. One read, "They denied her a room, so she denied them employment." Another had her face edited onto Beyoncé's Single Ladies cover with the caption, "If you liked it, then you should have let her check in." Doug tried one last desperate move. "Sandra, you'll regret this. We were just trying to keep the standards of the hotel." Sandra cocked her head. "Standards? You mean denying paying guests because they don't match your picture of what belongs?" Newsflash, Doug. You just lowered the standards to rock bottom. Security finally arrived. 2 towering men in navy suits who looked like they'd been hired straight from a Marvel casting call. With polite but firm hands, they escorted the disgraced staff out, Doug kicking and sputtering like a toddler denied candy at Walmart. The applause from the guests grew louder. It wasn't just clapping. It was the sound of justice, of satisfaction, of watching arrogance crumble into dust. Sandra stood tall in the middle of it all, basking in the glow of her triumph. Later, in her private suite, the very one Doug had denied her just hours ago, Sandra sank into the plush armchair, a glass of champagne in hand. She scrolled through her phone, watching the videos of her fiery takedown already racking up millions of views. Comments flooded in. "Queen behavior. Imagine getting fired in 4K Ultra HD. This is the clapback of the century." Sandra laughed, so hard champagne nearly sprayed from her nose. "Well," she muttered to herself, "at least I didn't have to rickroll them." By morning, news outlets had picked up the story. Headlines blared. "Hotel staff deny black woman entry. Turns out she owns the hotel." Late-night comedians cracked jokes about it. One even played the footage of Doug being dragged out while inserting the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme in the background. As for Sandra, she wasn't bitter. She was radiant. The humiliation she endured had transformed into a national spectacle of karma. And in her witty, fearless way, she reminded everyone that underestimating someone because of how they look was a career-ending mistake. When reporters asked her what she learned from the ordeal, Sandra smirked and replied, "Next time I'll bring popcorn. People love a good show." And just like that, the story closed. Not with quiet revenge, but with fireworks of laughter, justice, and a viral legacy that would live longer than any overpriced cocktail in the hotel lounge. Sandra had won, and she had won in style.